world.
And we have Afghanistan, Pakistan,
Let's wait until everybody seated. Okay, I think we can begin. Ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, welcome to everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join our discussion event today with Ruben Melikyan here at the School of Advanced International Studies. Before I introduce both the topic and the speaker, just allow me to say a very quick word in a personal matter. As you all know, we had actually and initially planned to have this event yesterday, but the weather conditions compelled us to reschedule it, even though, allow me to say, me being an Austrian, I have to say it was not that big deal yesterday. It was just a normal, usual winter day, and I think those of you who come from Armenia or Karabakh would agree and would join me in making this observation. But anyways, please accept our apologies for any inconvenience that may have been caused due to this rescheduling. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Ruben Melikyan, who has kindly agreed to come to this very interesting and very sure fascinating discussion event. For those of you who are not familiar and who do not know the biography of Ruben, Ruben is human rights defender, ombudsman of the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. He was elected into office by the National Assembly of Artsakh, or Nagorno-Karabakh, in May 2016, shortly after the renewed hostilities around the line, and we would be, of course, very much interested also to hear your take and to hear your inside information, both in terms of the immediate as well as long-term consequences that may come up as a consequence from these renewed hostilities. Ruben is also an outstanding legal expert. He has earned his PhD in law from Yerevan State University, and is also a graduate of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and in addition he has held various also official positions in the Republic of Armenia. Among them, he was the Deputy Minister of Justice as well as advisor to the Chairman of the Court of Cassation in Armenia. Ruben, many thanks to you for being with us today, and we are very much looking forward to your keynote. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Benedikt Harzl. I'm one of two Austrian Marshall Plan Foundation Fellows here at the Center for Transatlantic Relations. I'm going to be the moderator and the chair of this event. Allow me to say that I'm also very personally grateful for this opportunity, for this exchange with Ruben, because territorial disputes in the South Caucasus, and in particular the normative aspect of accommodating for the existence of de facto statehood, particularly from the position of public international law, is and has always been a crucial component of my research agenda and my research foci here, even though I have to say I'm a little more familiar with the cases of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. But I think what we can say, and probably this also applies to Nagorno-Karabakh, is that those entities have been most successful in defying the jurisdiction of metropolitan states on the one hand, and on the other hand, they have been equally successful in providing, even if on a rudimentary basis, but state functions over the last decades. So before I open the floor, just allow me some very quick introductory remarks about the state of affairs of conflict resolution in the South Caucasus, and in this respect I would like to elaborate on a couple of hypotheses. First of all, particularly also if we look to the Georgian Abkhazian case, for instance, I think what we have seen over the past decades is that there is a lack of a harmonized and unified approach towards conflict resolutions. The parties, and that would lead me to my next hypothesis, have basically or are basically not prepared to settle for anything less than for their maximalist demands. And thirdly, the portrayal of this conflict in terms of a geopolitical struggle has also made it possible for conflict parties on all sides to abandon substantive proposals to ameliorate this crisis. And I think part of this picture, and I have to say the very sobering picture, is the problem that there is a lack of a generally acceptable descriptive framework for all these kinds of conflicts. And that, of course, immediately would bring up also the delicate, controversial, but I would claim crucial issue of asking what role should be accorded to de facto statehood in the course of conflict resolution. I claim, of course, that's a controversial issue, but still it needs to be addressed, and without anticipating my research results, which I'm going to publish also in the framework of my fellowship, I'm quite convinced that international law is indeed in the position to provide for accommodation with de facto state. So against this background, we're very grateful to have Ruben with us today, because this also reflects our deliberate interest and our wish to have an inside voice from an entity that is very often treated, I have to say also unfortunately, as a blind spot with regard to conflict resolution. So I think that's the point where my contribution should stop, and I would hand over to Ruben. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Benedikt, and it's my honor to be present here in Johns Hopkins University, SAIS. SAIS, you say, or USA? SAIS, okay.
As you
Yeah, and I'm very happy to have this opportunity, and I'm very happy that yesterday's bad weather didn't change our plans terminally, and we just postponed it for one day. And I'm going to start my presentation with a short story about the weather conditions in Nagorno-Karabakh. Some months ago, and not only weather, it was just an event. One day when I woke up, it was about 8:30 a.m. It was an earthquake. It was about 3 or 4 grades, something like that, and the apartment was really shaking. There was also an aftershock. Okay, I was worried. I went to my workplace, and in the end of the day, it was a storm, a real storm. Everything was rushed, and even the roofs of many buildings, including, I remember also some governmental buildings. My apartment was flooded because the windows opened and so on and so forth. And 2-3 hours I hard worked to fix it. It was about 6-7 p.m. About 9-10 p.m. I went to a cafe when I done. Nobody was talking about weather. Nobody is talking about earthquake. So people were talking about different things, including the situation on the line of contact. And this is not a very good story, of course, because it means that people are worried about the situation in the line of contact, the security situation, as much as they don't even care about that kind of things like storm and earthquake. I'm human rights defender of Nagorno-Karabakh for about 1 year, and I assumed my office in May 2016 after the events that we call April War. Some people call it 4 Days War. I was elected by Parliament, and the Office of Human Rights Defender, I'm not the first one, the Office of Human Rights Defender was established in Nagorno-Karabakh since 2008. So I'm the second human rights defender. And human rights defender or ombudsman is pretty much European institution, which was started, I believe, in Sweden, although Norway has a different point of view. And now in Eastern Europe you can find many offices of ombudsman. There are different models. One model is that you have one ombudsman for all the human rights, for all areas of human rights, and the other perspective is that you have different child rights ombudsman, consumer rights ombudsman, military ombudsman, and so on and so forth. So our approach is one ombudsman approach, and we have our population is not very big, so I think that it's enough, especially for capacity building issues, for capacity issues. We have small capacity. Not only because of the number of population, but also because of the policy of isolation that Azerbaijan imposed, and that is one of the reasons that we have that capacity issue. The ombudsman is elected for 6 years a term, and we have several legislative opportunities which were even enlarged after constitutional referendum on 20th of February, just recently. So our primal authority is to receive human rights claims for citizens against Nagorno-Karabakh specific authorities and to follow that claims. This is very much a regular thing for all the ombudsmen. We follow it by writing to the respective authorities, trying to negotiate with them, trying to talk with them, and trying to receive the answers, and to give our legal explanations and our legal positions, and that's pretty much the main work that is done by ombudsman. Annually, we receive about 140 complaints, and for different areas: social rights, educational rights, human rights related to police, penitentiary, as well as religious rights, and so on and so forth. So this is our primal obligation and primal responsibility. Unlike many ombudsman institutions in Europe, we also have opportunity to go to our Supreme Court with constitutional claims related to human rights, to challenge legislation as well as regulations on the basis of Constitution. We have already prepared several cases to go there, and we think that we are going to go there after the constitutional reform, because we needed to understand which constitution is in force. We also closely cooperate with legislative authorities, trying to, we receive all the draft law, and we have opportunity to have our position on them, and to convince legislators to have more human rights friendly legislation. Our third responsibility is just general human rights education, general human rights atmosphere. So we are responsible for that. We are trying to be very creative here, making school human rights contests. The last one was the contest named Why Human Rights Are Important, and it was dedicated to December 10, the Human Rights Day. Many students took part, and it was really very interesting to see how their approach to human rights. And I would say, I need to say that more than 90% of all the applications, all the essays that we received from our high school students, in deeply or not so deeply touched upon security, right to security, and the fear of atrocities from Azerbaijanis. So this is very much human rights issue for us. We handle that issue, and we are working on that issue. And also, we would like to say that we don't have very many opportunities of the polls to find out the main problems in the society. But last year it was a poll organized by European Friends of Armenia. This is an NGO based in Europe, which showed that more than 50% of the respondents, problem number one is security issue. So for the citizens of Nagorno-Karabakh, this is number one problem, and that's why I need to go there as well. During the hearing in National Assembly, I was questioned. I received many questions about the events in April. They were very fresh, and I promised to start a fact-finding mission. According to our law, we have that opportunity to start to conduct a fact-finding mission, and it was started in May 11. It included the methodology included on-site visits, witness interview, requests from Nagorno-Karabakh authorities, law enforcement, and requested many documents, including forensic documents, dozens of interviews, a number of on-site visits in different places of April events, and as well as expert consultations and open source monitoring that we still conduct. And during this fact-finding mission, unfortunately, our findings were very alarming. So this is one of the, I can share it with you, one of the infographic images. Okay, I'll share it. You can pass it. We see that I focused on one particular issue, which is the behavior towards civilians as well as Artsakh Defense Army. This is the name of the army. Artsakh Defense Army servicemen who fell under control of Azerbaijan. And our finding is that about 90% of all the people who fell under control of Azerbaijan were either tortured or executed or mutilated. This finding is based not only on the documents and other evidence that I collected from Artsakhi sources, but also from the videos and pictures that were uploaded by Azerbaijani users in the early period of time during April war. So it's April 2, April 3. Many pictures, many videos. They very soonly were removed from different social media, especially Facebook, also Russian social media, which is very popular in our region, which is Vkontakte. We found several videos and pictures there, graphic images with pictures of atrocities. Some of them were picturing, and we have it, we downloaded it, we used it in our fact-finding, including the head of, sorry to say that, but the decapitated head of Artsakh Defense Army servicemen is taken to a village. There are children just running around, and people are taking pictures with the head. And in the end of that short video, the person who is taking it approaching somebody and saying, "May Almighty bless your hands that you cut this head," that kind of things. The other one is picturing, again, and everybody, by the way, was identified by us. I'm going to talk about it as well. Now, a fallen Artsakh Defense Army serviceman who is approached by a cameraman and somebody else, and they are talking each other, and one of them is asking, "Would you please bring a knife in order to cut his hair?" And they are just talking about that, and it turned out that his hairs are already cut. So that's one other example, and many other pictures as well. It's also a very alarming issue is that the comments that come after that publications are totally Armenophobic, which is a huge problem. I produced a report, and you can have it. We have copies here. You can take one. On December 9, I published this report in the village of Talish. You can see the northern part, one of the three parts where the citizen or servicemen fell under control of Azerbaijan, the northern part. This is a village that is totally destroyed, devastated during April war. And I published the report there on the December 9, and the date was chosen not by choice. This is the day of prevention of genocide, and I wanted to use this date because I believe that there is something to talk in context of intent to genocide. In the last escalation in Nagorno-Karabakh was in February 24-25, when it reported that in 2 places, in 2 points of line of contact, Azerbaijani special forces tried to attempted to make a subversive attack, and it was unsuccessful. And after that, when it turned out that 5 Azerbaijani servicemen were killed and their bodies are in no man's land, the new sentiment in Azerbaijan started. New Armenophobia is started. That was not. I mean, they tried to comment. Happened what has happened, and even new videos and images emerged in Azerbaijan sector of social media. And we downloaded a new one on February 25, 2017, just recently. And Azerbaijani soldier, we have everything here, and soon I will publish it because we covered the faces of the victims, and also we added English language subtitles. He's saying literally the following: I will show you what is a genocide, and it repeats twice. It's something that is of high importance. And the perception of this threat is very serious in Nagorno-Karabakh, and that's number 1 priority for us. I constantly state that I'm not Armenian rights defender, and I'm human rights defender in Nagorno-Karabakh, and I try to do my best to implement rule of law, notwithstanding the nation, language, and so on and so forth. And we had opportunity. We had an occasion in the very beginning of February where another subversive attack. As a lawyer, I need to say, presumably was made by Azerbaijani, and one of them was captured. And I visited him and made a statement saying that I'm going to do my best to ensure his human rights. And specifically, I emphasized the right to a lawyer by his choice. I value this very much because I understand as a lawyer, as a person who understands what is criminal procedure, that if you have a right to a lawyer by your choice, your chances are higher, always. And I emphasized that, and I put it on my official Facebook page. And you should see what Armenophobic comments came up from Azerbaijan. Tens of Armenophobic comments, tens of them. The most gentle one was just cursing, including threats and so on. We don't pay much attention on that, but we need to say that that's not energizing thing. We need people to share the values that we share. And we try to, in Nagorno-Karabakh, we try to have a modern society with respect to human rights, democratic values. We have problems, and I, as a human rights defender, will feel much stronger if I have international human rights community support. I have some support from some international human rights community. By the way, one of them is an organization named the Institute of Ombudsmen, European Ombudsman Institute, based in Austria, and we have good relations with them. We are part of this organization, and we value that very much. We have some bilateral relations, especially with Armenian counterpart, and our relations are very deep. They help us, professionally and also in capacity building, but that's not enough. We need capacity building activities in Nagorno-Karabakh because otherwise we cannot achieve as much as we can. The policy of Azerbaijan towards Nagorno-Karabakh is isolation. And we think that that's not only illegal one, but also counterproductive one. Why it's illegal one? Because the human rights are universal and we cannot have a situation where some have more universal rights and the rest less universal rights. And when we talk about right to freedom of movement, right to education, especially those two are affected here because our citizens can not enjoy fully those rights as citizens of non-recognized state. On the other hand, all other rights are under question, under some question, because of this, as I said, capacity issue. So many people presumably not visit Nagorno-Karabakh because of those blacklist issues and recently also criminal prosecution issues. And if they visited, we could have even more capacity in terms of professionalism, as well as our other abilities. So my point is that the policy of Azerbaijan is, first of all, illegal and is against the trends and values of human rights that were enshrined in Universal Declaration of Human Rights and all documents that follow the Universal Declaration. But it's also counterproductive because we are not giving up and the will and the zeal is multiplying to fight for human rights, fundamental rights, and to find creative ways to reach out internationally. I think that I'll stop here, and I'm perfectly ready to answer all the questions, and please, I'm ready for them. Again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ruben. I think we are already in the midst of the discussion, and I already saw a hand up there. Please go ahead, sir. Sorry, you also could kindly introduce yourself.
I'm Fabian. I work with the ANCA, and you had mentioned like there's a lack, Mr. Harzl, like there's not a consistent international framework for understanding situations like this, which is true, obviously. And I would ask Ruben, like, what are the trends that you do see, not just in human rights, but in international law? Like, where does the Artsakh fit in any evolution of international law on these types of situations? Is there
the Republic of Artsakh international law where there is
self-determination versus territorial integrity? Like, what's the evolution of that you've seen in the last decade, let's say?
Well, again, I'm not a politician. I'm not a political person. I have never been a politician, and I'm human rights, and I'm looking at all the issues from the perspective of human rights. And I would say that we constantly see these two principles are fighting each other. My point is that we need to take into account the current situation. When we see that 90% of people who fell under control of Azerbaijan were subjected to war crimes, that's something different than just right to self-determination as itself. So it's right to self-determination of people who fear for their future and who have solid ground to fear for their future. So I cannot answer your question in terms of a political environment, but I can answer from point of view of human rights that I believe that I feel that in international relations, this understanding is coming more mature and mature. Self-determination in the situations that there is a threat to the population, it's kind of remedial. There is a concept of remedial secession. We could also talk about remedial recognition, and I would add to that remedial engagement as a remedy to prevent that kind of events. And we need international community in Nagorno-Karabakh as a remedy and as a preventive tool from repeating that kind of atrocities.
If I also may intervene here,
I would
because
love to hear
I was a bit teased by your question as well, if I may say. I think one of the most important characteristics of international law, in particular of public international law, is that international law only functions as a remedial instrument and as an instrument to provide for conflict resolution, provided that there is consensus about its substantive principles. And speaking about self-determination, that's quite an uneasy issue actually, because self-determination has been historically, first of all, a political principle before it got absorbed, so to speak, by the law. I would even claim the same also applies to remedial secession, which is as well a rather unshaky, let's say a shaky construction. So the point is that the acceptability of international law rests very often on the vagueness of its underlying rules. And that's, of course, one of the issues I always used to claim, that law in this sense fails to have very often its very remedial character. Unfortunately, of course, I have to say. But if you just imagine, we have already been discussing this today with Kate. Now, if you go for a very doctrinal application of international law with regard to uti possidetis principle, I always used to say that the lawyer is overwhelmed by the question, should the people of Artsakh enjoy a right to external self-determination? Because a negative answer to this would be at the same time would imply to accept boundaries that were drawn by Stalin. There is, by the way, and I can really recommend it to even though I don't take here a position, I just want to, notify about this very awkward situation. There is an excellent monograph which was published not so long ago by Yushein Saparov on how autonomous formations in the very early state of the Soviet Union came into being. And he is a historian, and he really went into the archives. And I can tell you, it's a jaw-dropping experience to see how, by just a telephone call between Ordzhonikidze and Stalin, the situation was taken to say, well, Nagorno-Karabakh Oblast, which was, by the way, the only titular nation that was not named after an ethnic group, but rather after a territory, that